wise man once told me that its situations are often not as good or bad as you think they are. With Mercedes, Baxty, how do we characterise what we've seen?
How to not say SH1T in this situation.
Toto, as bad as it was, why did you consider putting the car in parc ferme? Yes, that means starting from the pit lane. And Toto said, yes, we did consider it, but we wouldn't have known what to change. And that to me is the biggest problem. Like the fact that they wouldn't have known. There's clearly still a knowledge problem. As much as this season has been progress, there's still P2 in the constructors. Lewis is still chasing for P2 in the drivers, but the team still has gaps of knowledge. And that to me was the biggest, like, wow, I couldn't believe that.
That it's the greatest season I've ever seen. I'm going to take it a step further and say it is the greatest season not to win a championship that I have ever seen. That Ferrari had no right being anywhere near the World Championship.
To me, he is still one of the top 2 or 3 drivers on the grid. Like I've said, for me, it's Verstappen, Hamilton, and Alonso. Those 3 to me are still at the top of the F1 pyramid.
130R though, chaps. Here, let me argue the case against 130R. Was it that good, really, as an overtaking manoeuvre? Was it really that good? I watched that back about 5 times and I was like, listen, Schumacher's giving him that corner. For bravery, absolutely 10 out of 10. But as far as like the mechanics of the overtake, I think history has massively overhyped that. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shakedown. With me as always, my co-host Baxty, co-host Shez, and a very special guest, the one they call Aldas. How are we doing, chaps?
Good, thanks, mate.
Good, very good. How are we doing, Aldas?
I'm doing very good. I feel like this has been a bit of a... I think we planned this a while ago, or certainly talked about it a while ago, so it's good to finally be on, and definitely some good stuff to talk about.
It's a privilege, bruv. Again, market-leading settings. Who else in the space is better than this chap, eh? Aldas, Skypod, giving it to the one they call Nico Rosberg, like he's not an F1 world champion. Put some respect on Aldas's name. Go on then, lads. Very quickly, let's talk about the Grand Prix that was the Brazilian. There's a couple talking points I want to get to. First and foremost, Aldas, I'm going to throw to you first, bruv. Talk to me about Fernando Alonso and his performance that he put down in the final 15 laps of that Grand Prix, bruv. Because I, for one, as a noddy F1 fan, was mightily impressed. You too, Aldas.
Oh, for sure. It was a brilliant Fernando Alonso performance, and actually really good to see Aston Martin kind of back because, yeah, since McLaren's kind of stole all the headlines the past couple of months, I mean, yeah, Aston Martin has struggled, but luckily this was a good track for them. We'll see if it continues in Vegas and then Abu Dhabi as well. But yeah, good qualifying. Obviously out-qualified by Lance Stroll out of nowhere. I mean, Lance just turns up like 3 times a year, and clearly this was one of those races. But then in the race, Fernando Alonso, he's a different animal in the race. And especially that defense from, defending Sergio Perez. He lost it obviously on the final or 2 laps before. And then somehow managed to get it back. It was just brilliant driving. You could see, I think Formula One posted some videos of his driving that kind of last couple of laps. He was trying different lines, just using all of the tricks in the book, even to the race, even the race to the line. He just kind of, I think, ducked to a different side to just kind of slow down Sergio Perez right at the end. And I mean, yeah, photo finish, holding off Checo for the podium. It was a brilliant. And I remember it was a brilliant drive. And I mean, a few days afterwards, there was people asking, is this the greatest? Like, where does this rank in terms of Alonso's greatest drives? And whilst I don't think it even cracks his top 20 because he's that caliber of driver, it was probably the best part of a bit of a boring race, to be honest, in terms of my opinion, in terms of what we usually get from Sao Paulo.
Oh, there's a beautiful segue in there somewhere, but I will keep my powder dry. Baxty, talk to me about Fernando El Plan Alonso very quickly, bro. Impressed, super impressed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got roasted for saying Fernando would finish on the podium going into the race. Like, oh no, that Aston's rubbish. And then he did it because I just know Fernando in a position to get something out of a race is a different animal. Yeah, he will extract performance from a car that just isn't there. It was an unbelievable drive. And the fact that he went past that Red Bull, I know it was Checo driving the Red Bull, but the fact that he went past it and fought back was just chef's kiss. Classic Fernando Alonso.
Levels, bro. Shez, talk to me, man. As impressed as we all were.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I love Fernando at the best of times, but I think characterizing it as it was just, dogged determination, underplays it a little bit. It was so intelligent the way he was, every tool at his disposal, a track where everyone, DRS is so powerful, it's so easy to overtake into that first corner. To be able to put his car in the places that he did, to use the energy the way that he did, and then to fake the little dummy once he got past into turn one. Oh man, it was. I mean, if you weren't on the edge of your seat watching that, I don't know what you were doing.
Bruv, he was was the Spaniard, the man from Oviedo, Astoria. I really enjoyed it, man. And I just
loved it.
Listen, when he's at his best, the devil, the way he's Ving the corner off so he can get on the throttle super early. Mate, I love that. Aldous, let me pitch this at you very quickly before we move on to the next one. As a man with lap records in karting, talk to me about the lines that Fernando Alonso was taking, because he was in slow machinery, right? What sort of things, if you're in that car as a karting guy with karting records, like what's the play, Aldous? How do you do that, bro?
So the thing about Formula One that you'll notice that sometimes the drivers aren't even fully in the slipstream, like when they're chasing someone, especially going into a corner, they're not actually fully in the slipstream, and it's all because they're trying to get kind of that air onto the downforce. And if you're in someone's slipstream, you're not getting that air onto your wings and kind of that stopping. It's actually why Ricciardo crashed into the back of Max in Baku 2018. If you remember that crash, it's because once, Ricciardo was at the back of him, he just lost his, braking potential in terms of that downforce. So you just see him using different lines, and especially into the final, or I think it was kind of the final corner. It's the kind of the last real corner in Brazil. I think he did like a really different line compared to Checo on the lap that he overtook him. And at first it looks like he's gone a little bit wide, but it's purely just to kind of get on the throttle and kind of square his car off just a little bit sooner, get on the throttle just a little bit earlier. And, listen, it worked in the end. He kind of gave Checo the dummy and kind of got him a little bit, scared into turn one, and then finished the move off on the final lap. So it's just these little things that Fernando is able to not just get the most out of his car, but again, even to the run to the line, just that little kind of dink just before the line, just to give Checo like the slightest bit of hesitation. It's all of these things that he just uses. I mean, I think it was 2021 or 2022. He did like a practice start in one of the sprints or something where he would start for the race just to warm up his, just put a bit of rubber down on his grid box. So yeah, this is a guy that leaves nothing on the table, not just in terms of the car, but the track as well. And yeah, we saw all of those things in the last couple of laps.
Bro, operating at a different level, that chap is. And we've said it for a while, man. I like the fact that he does it now when people were starting to doubt him, right? That people had started to recite him talking about only podiums through to the rest of the season. Is he still the guy? Is he the right guy for Aston Martin, especially as it looks ostensibly like they're in a decline in H2? I love that dude, man. I think he's a different level. Proper street fight of a driver. Let's nail Mercedes in one word or less. Baxter, I'm afraid to you on Mercedes because it's Tekier. A wise man once told me that situations are often not as good or bad as you think they are. With Mercedes, Baxter, how do we characterize what we're seeing? Better or worse than what we saw at Brazil?
How to not say SH1T in this situation. No, look, they had a poor weekend and they got the setup completely wrong. I still think there's a lot of positive there. They just had an absolute stinker of a weekend, which is one of the pitfalls of the sprint weekend. And it's actually why I think the proposals to the sprint format, which I know we don't have time to get into today, are a good idea going forward with opening up Parc Fermé.
Fair play. Shez, talk to me, bruv. Better or worse are Mercedes than what we saw out from them at Brazil? 50 words or less.
Probably better. I think. I think it was a bad race for them in terms of their floor didn't work out the way they were expecting it to. Couldn't get the downforce out of it. Had to whack a massive rear wing on it on a track where you need straight line pace going into the first corner. To not have any straight line pace, you're dead in the water. And then they're overworking their tires. They're getting past right, left, and center. It was the sprint sort of predicted it, and that's the worst thing about the sprint is that it was just a spoiler for the race in the end, wasn't it? Like you knew exactly what was going to happen, and exactly what was going to happen did happen. But Merck kind of did. I think they didn't expect that to happen, but once you saw it happen once, it was going to happen again in the race.
Yeah, it's fair. Aldas, let me ask you a different question as we round third base on Mercedes. What was the root cause of their issues at Brazil, in your humble opinion? Because I keep hearing loads of people say different things, right? That they don't understand their problems, that it was a bit of setup issues, that it was the ride height, that they're upgrading. Give me in a nutshell, Aldas, what you reckon the root cause of Mercedes issues were at Brazil.
I think there's definitely a setup element to it, because let's not forget, obviously they got disqualified from the previous Grand Prix where we had a sprint in Austin. And so they kind of try to play a little, I think Toto Wolff actually said they try to play a little bit more safe and kind of raise their car a little bit. The problem is that these cars, the most of their downforce comes from the floor. So when you're raising your car, you're losing a significant amount of that downforce. They try to regain some of that by putting bigger wings on the car, thinking that, if it might kind of offset it a little bit. And ultimately, the bigger wings actually didn't give them the downforce that they needed through the corners. And what happens is, it's a bit of a kind of backwards. It's difficult to kind of explain, but when you have more downforce, it's easier on the tires because you can be easy on the throttle. Your car just kind of sticks to the ground a lot easier without working the tires as much. When you have less downforce, the car is sliding a little bit. It's much more difficult on the throttle, and you're burning the tires up a lot more. And that's what Mercedes ran into, and that was their biggest problem. Like, yes, they put bigger wings on, but that caused more drag, so they got absolutely destroyed on the straights. They were the slowest team. I actually looked at all the top speed figures that the FIA released. They were the slowest team on the straights. They didn't have the downforce that they needed to protect their tires, so it was just a horrible car. And I think it was the seventh best car that weekend. Which, when you asked, is it better or worse for Mercedes? It can't be. It's got to be better, than this, because Alpine was quicker than, obviously, the likes of McLaren and Ferrari and Red Bull and Aston Martin, but Alpine and AlphaTauri. Let's not forget, Yuki was packing Lewis in the sprint. So that AlphaTauri, was better than the Mercedes. And had it not have been for Ricciardo and Piastri being a lap down because of that lap 1 damage, they would have overtook Lewis, no doubt. So realistically, Mercedes should have scored no points in that race. They were actually lucky to score even the few points that they did with Lewis, and the car was unreliable as well. I think people forget Russell didn't even finish the race. So yeah, it was a horrible, absolute horrible weekend. And I mean, if Mercedes is 7th quickest for the rest of the season or even next year, I mean, that's going to be headlines, isn't it?
Oh my goodness, bruv. Baxty, to your original point, right? SH1T, man, it's really bad. Oh, well, chaps, I will say finally on this before we come to our main event. I think it's quite concerning, for me at least, that Mercedes realised that they would need more downforce at Brazil and brought their big bloody rear wing, and still experienced excessive tyre deg. That doesn't make sense to me. Aldas, that feels like they don't truly understand the problems with this W14 still.
By the way, also actually, because a lot of people ask, Toto, as bad as it was, why did you consider putting the car in parc ferme? Yes, that means starting from the pit lane. And Toto said, yes, we did consider it, but we wouldn't have known what to change. And that to me is the biggest problem. Like the fact that they wouldn't have known. There's clearly still a knowledge problem. As much as this season has been progress, there's still P2 in the constructors. Lewis is still chasing for P2 in the drivers, but the team still has gaps of knowledge. And that to me was the biggest, like, wow, I couldn't believe that.
Oh my God. This is bad. Baxty. Shez, I don't even know what to say. Go on, let's move on swiftly then before we baptise Mercedes again on the Shakedown. Right, for our final, the main event, chaps, let's talk about, I think it's very apropos that we talk about Fernando Alonso. Today, we're going to do a top 5 Fernando Alonso moments. And again, you guys know the rules and regs already. We will go through each and every single one of our top 5, 5 to 3 first in order, and then we'll reach some sort of, or try to reach some sort of consensus at the end. Who wants to go first? This is going to get techy. Don't volunteer all at once. Shez, I'm looking at you. Do you fancy it?
Sure.
You sure?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so before I do my 5, 4, 3, I've got 2 honourable mentions. Can't believe there's only 2, but here we go. First one is Brazil 2018. That was just amusing. Retiring the car, getting on the camera, showing us what his skills are. I thought that was the fact that Fernando can do everything and yet not hold a camera was interesting. Not going to forget that for a while. And second honorable mention is the 2008 Japanese Grand Prix. I thought that was a really interesting one because that season, Fernando has just come off the back of having to leave McLaren. He's in a car that isn't as competitive. They've had that really controversial win in Singapore, and then he turns up and Lewis and Felipe have decided to take each other out, but he did a classic. If there's a sniff of a win here, I'm going to take it, and won really convincingly in a car that shouldn't have been able to win. Those are my honourable mentions. 543. So at 5, I've got Spanish GP qualifying in 2001.
Oh, he's gone quali. Bloody Nora, go on.
yeah. So I don't think that qualifying is really where Fernando excels, but this showed what he can do in a car that can't perform, and it's something that's a hallmark of him, being able to drag something unexpected out of a car that shouldn't be able to do it. So he outqualified both Benettons that year, and Pedro de la Rosa's Jaguar, and his own teammate by a second and a half. What car was he driving?
Minardi.
A Minardi. Wow. So that's got to go down there. And I think that if there were ever any doubts, that was only race 5 for him in F1. So if there were ever any doubts about what he was going to be able to do in the future, I think those were either confirmed or quashed there. Number 4, I've got the Nürburgring 2007. That's a European Grand Prix. Massive rain shower at the beginning of the race. Everyone's decided to use the turn 1 runoff as a car park. Then it becomes dry. Felipe's just headed off into the distance, and the rain comes. And as soon as the rain comes, that McLaren switched itself on that season, and he did a cheeky one. He did a cheeky one into the chicane. Had a little touch. Which, number one, like at the time, I was absolutely like off my seat. I loved that. But it was what he did when he got into Parc Fermé afterwards, and gets out the car, camera, look what's happened here, and then the little ding dong with Felipe in the
he does the little finger as well. No.
Loved it. and then their little argument, where they're shouting at each other in it can't have been Spanish. They don't both speak Spanish.
Italian. Do you know what?
It was Italian.
It was Italian.
And someone actually commented that it's hilarious that a Spaniard and a Brazilian are fighting Italian. It's brilliant.
So that's number 4, and then number 3. You guys are going to think this is a bit of a cop out, but I've gone for 2012, the whole season, just because. Yeah, there were big races. There were big races in there. The European Grand Prix that season is obviously a massive highlight, and his other 2 wins at the Hungaroring and not the Hungaroring, sorry, at Hockenheim and at Sepang. Hockenheim accepted. The other 2 sort of had a little bit of luck involved, but the way that he. Again, this is just Fernando in a nutshell. If there's a sniff of a big result, he'll take something that can't be done and do it anyway. And to be 3 points off the title at the end of that season, and that Fernando stare, the meme-worthy stare at the end of the season in Brazil, like if that's not in your top 5 moments, what are we doing? 5, 4, 3.
Donate it. Baxty, talk to me, bruv.
So I've also got 2 honourable mentions. So yeah, Japan 08 is one of them. The other one is actually Brazil 23. I agree with what Aldous said that, it's not in his top 20 drives, but it felt like a moment. Yeah, a bit of recency bias, I know, but it felt like a moment of just Fernando Alonso distilled into just one drive that he encapsulates his whole career and his whole skill set, and that's why I love what he did last Sunday. Number 5, I've actually gone Hungary 2003. His first win, starts on pole, destroys the field, laps Michael Schumacher.
Chaos.
I mean, Jesus Christ! And it was Shez spoke about the potential he showed in that qualifying session. this was the birth of a new star. And obviously 2 years later, we all know what happened. Number 4, I've gone for Singapore 2010. I think a very underrated drive from Fernando. Started on pole, led the whole race. It's the only Grand Chelem of his career. Held off Vettel for most of the race. He had a bit of luck, with Vettel having a couple of bits of misfortune, like stalling in the pits and everything. But this was just an unbelievable drive from Fernando, and it was really that and Monza the week before were what kick-started his assault for that title in 2010, and he was so close. And then number 3, I've gone for one of the obvious ones. I've gone for 130R and Schumacher when he just absolutely rinses him around the outside.
We're going to have to talk about that, Baxty. I watched that a dozen times, in prep for this. Have you? Well, let me powder dry time. Aldas, talk to me, bro. Give me a 5 to 3.
Listen, I'm going to pick up right where Baxty left off. At number 5 is the overtake on Schumacher at 130R. I think, apart from the fact that it was a fantastic move, we talked about, the rise of a star in 2003. I think 2005 was like, he has arrived. Everyone was wondering who is going to beat Schumacher, who is going to defeat this Ferrari domination train, like the team that looked like they were never going to lose. And it was, Fernando Alonso. And I feel like 130R at Suzuka. Again, not just a great move, but just symbolic. So, yeah, that's what I've got at number 5. I love watching that overtake. Commentary is great as well, which always helps. At number 4, I've got Baku 2018. I mean, I can put about 20 McLaren Honda and McLaren Renault drives in there that were absolutely fantastic. But that just personified what Fernando was, even at the back end of his career when we thought it was going to be over. I mean, he was driving on 2 wheels at the end of lap 1 after getting damage, had damage on the floor, pulled into the pits, got a little bit lucky with some of the safety cars, and still managed to get into P7 in a horrible McLaren. And that drive was just class personified. It doesn't matter what car you give him, he will get it into the points. And then I couldn't believe I couldn't believe what Shez said about his third. I've got the exact same thing on my list. The entire 2012 season. I know it's a bit of a cop out as well, but that's literally what I've got on my list in third. It's still probably, in my opinion, the greatest probably season I've ever seen from a driver. Just in terms of getting the most out of not a great car. I'm never going to say that Sebastian Vettel doesn't deserve that title, because I don't really feel like. Okay, let's not talk about, deserving, there's a few controversial titles, but I think every driver in a way deserves a title, because, there's no bad drivers in Formula 1 and certainly no bad champions. But Fernando Alonso was the best driver of 2012, only getting 3 wins, I believe, in Sepang, which in my opinion is his best ever win. And then also I think in Valencia and Hockenheim, and that's it. 3 wins, and he went into the title decider. Felipe Massa, I think, only got like 2 podiums that season or something, or 1 podium. So it's the best season in terms of getting the most out of a car that was a dog at the beginning of the season. It did get better, but yeah, that 2012 season I think is the best individual season I've probably ever seen in my life, to be honest.
Oh, boys, you lot are making a mug of me, man. I don't know if I can it's so techie not to put the 2012. All right, you know what? Let's go for it. Honourable mention, Brazil 2023. That very nearly made my list, Had Aldas not cursed me out at the outset for putting it on, I think that was...
He's bottled it.
Bro, I have bottled it. Absolutely. No, do I put it on? I really want to put it on, I think just for I think it was incredible for the timing. It was an absolutely spectacular drive, and the nuts and bolts of what he did, right? I know Checo Perez is no slouch. He hasn't been in great form of late, but in that RB19, not just to hold him off for like 15, 20 laps, but to have him pass you and then repass him. Bloody Nora, chaps. Put some respect on Fernando Alonso's name. You know what I'm going to... Otherworthy mention. Hungary 07. I don't care. I do not care. Here's why. Here's why I like that as a moment, right? Fernando Alonso, we all know him as a street fighter of a driver. And that acrimony had been bubbling for a couple of Grand Prix, most notably at Monaco. And they didn't like each other, right? Fernando Alonso felt slighted in a very British-centric team, probably the most British team that have ever raced in F1 in McLaren. And this was Fernando Alonso biting back. Enough was enough. That was meant to be my qualifying position. I had the right of way, and He bit back in the pits, didn't he? Held up Lewis Hamilton, and I think as skullduggerous as it was vengeance personified, and that's come for me to embody everything that Fernando Alonso is and represents in 5th position. This is so bloody techie, chaps. I don't even know where I'm. There's so many to leave out, and I don't want to make any mistakes here. Go on then. In 5th, I'm gonna say. You know what? I'm going to say Imola 05 versus Schumacher. It could have been higher, chaps. But when I heard him talk about, when he referenced that, he did a versus, didn't he? Compare the market, Fernando Alonso. When he talked about his race at Brazil, he said that Imola 05 was easier to do than Brazil, which makes me think I've actually bottled it, Aldous, and potentially should have put Brazil 23 on that list. In 4th, we are going with Spain 16, a brilliant drive, but I'm not giving it for the drive. I'm giving it for the celebration. You know, the old behind the back celebration, mate. Just a fantastic moment. And again, those celebrations have come to embody the maverick that is Fernando Alonso as a driver. And
he had sauce, that's for sure.
Mate, he's still got sauce for days, Aldous. Yeah, just a little bit, Shez. And then in 3rd for me, you know what? European Grand Prix, Massa. That was the one, right? Was it 07 European Grand Prix with Massa? There we go. Finger wag. Say no more. Somebody give me a 2-1. I loved that, mate. Honestly, I think it was brilliant. Baxty, you want to go first on your 2-1s?
Yeah, let's do it. So number 2, I've gone Imola 05. This was it was picture perfect car placement against Michael Schumacher. Okay, that 2005 Ferrari wasn't as good as the previous years, and we knew that there was going to be a changing of the guard. But Michael had everything stacked in his favour. He had preferable strategy. He was on a lighter fuel load, and it meant he could just go chase after Alonso, and yet Alonso kept him behind that entire time. Not only that, they also had back markers in the way, which would have made it easier for Schumacher to get past. Yes, it was Imola where it's hard to overtake, but I saw an interview of Fernando watching it, and he was just like, I knew because it was Imola that I could keep him behind. Absolute crazy levels. And I think that drive was kind of the moment in that season where we thought, there's your world champion. There it is. My number 1, and I'm really glad I'm not the only one who did this, is the 2012 season.
Oh, my days.
The reason I've gone for it number 1 is because this, I agree with what Aldous said, that it's the greatest season I've ever seen. I'm going to take it a step further and say it is the greatest season not to win a championship that I have ever seen. That Ferrari had no right being anywhere near the world championship. It was, at the start of the season, it was like the 5th fastest car. But at the end of the season, it was the 3rd fastest car. Red Bull, weren't as dominant as they had been, but there was that 4-race stretch where Vettel just blitzed everybody into next week. And Alonso was just fighting and grinding all the way. At one point in Brazil, it looked like he might do it. And he just tried so hard to get to that championship and just fell agonizingly short. But my God, it was a hell of a ride to watch.
Love it, bruv. 2012 season, yeah. So, all right. So I'm outnumbered here. Aldous, talk to me, bruv. Give me your second and first.
In second place, I've got, and to be fair, I definitely don't hate putting 2012 at the top of any list, but in second place, I've got another technicality one, and that is I've put Alonso's comeback. Now, when he came back in 2021, there was... Well, actually, when he left the sport in 2018, he left on a cloud. This was a great driver who had a horrible car for years and years. And he kind of came back on a cloud as well. There was a lot of people I remember in 2020 when it was announced asking, why is Renault not giving a chance to their juniors? Why are they bringing back this old guy Fernando Alonso? And so many people made a thing out of his age. That was a thing for a lot of 2021 in terms of how old he is. And just his comeback in general, the two years at Alpine, the one at Aston Martin, his age isn't even a conversation anymore. It's about the quality of the driver. And it doesn't matter what 18, 19 or 20-year-old you bring into the sport. Before we talk about, Fernando Alonso retiring, they've got to actually beat Fernando Alonso. And what he's done in his comeback, to me, he is still one of the top 2 or 3 drivers on the grid. Like I've said, for me, it's Verstappen, Hamilton, and Alonso. Those three to me are still at the top of the F1 pyramid. And I mean, yeah, I think his comeback has just been incredible, and what it's done for his legacy as well. For newer fans, I think they appreciate him a lot more after his McLaren, the end of his McLaren stint. And then at number one, I've actually got a short one. It's not technically a good moment, but I had to put it at number one because I think it kind of defines a little bit of his career. The GP2 engine radio comments. I think that's my number one. I think it's just a weird moment in time in terms of what could have been. It was the wrong decision to go to McLaren. What his career could have been if he stayed at Ferrari and maybe was there for 17 and 18 when they had race-winning cars. But, that comment and that McLaren and that time in his career, I think destroyed kind of his legacy. And the fact that he came back and did a lot to reinvent himself, I think is, I quite like those two moments. The GP2 moment was the absolute lowest point of his reputation. And I think his comeback has done so much to repair his legacy.
Love it, bro. Very well said. Shez, talk to me, bro.
Okay. My top two are going to be super boring compared to that lot. So at number two, I've got San Marino 05. Look, that race, I think it's at number two above sort of Brazil 2023, just because the build up in that race, Brazil for everything else you want to say about it was a little bit dull up until that last few laps, whereas this one built and built and built to that crescendo, where over the last few laps you've got the reigning world champion hot on the heels of the young Charger, and the young Charger's showing the guy behind what to do. And it was you can say it was at Imola, you can say we didn't have DRS back then, and we didn't have all of the energy deployment systems that we have now, which maybe make Brazil a little bit more impressive. But the way he held it back in Italy with that crowd, with that car on that day, I'm not going to forget that. That was a great drive, and it absolutely defined Fernando Alonso. And at number one, I've got Japan 2005, but actually for two moments. The first one was early on in the race, the moment that probably cost him that race. He cut the corner, overtaking Christian Clean, and if you watch the onboard, he's sitting there looking across and watching Christian Clean to see what he's doing, to let him back through again, so that he can then overtake him again into turn one. So that for me defined the cunning of Fernando Alonso, even though he ended up having to give that place back again anyway. I thought the thought process and the heat of the moment was very Fernando. And then, I mean, I have to put in 130R. That, like, for me, that's one of the greatest F1 moments of the noughties. It defined that season for me. And not just the move, but if you listen to what he said to him afterwards, he said, you can do that to Michael, because when you go around the outside of him, you know that he's got kids and he's going to back out.
Is that what he said? Bloody Nora, mate.
That's why Fernando still doesn't have kids. He has nothing to lose. He's going to go for the moves.
Every move.
That is chaos, bruv.
That's savage.
That is properly savage. I've never heard him say that,
That's my number one.
That's your number one. Yeah, I like the way you've done a tax avoidance thing there again, Shez. You've selected two, haven't you? You've done Japan 05, and then you've rolled 130R up into that. Go on, then. I'm going to give you my two now. Mate, this is tragic. I've left out some chaos ones. Baku 18, and specifically as a moment, the dude trying to keep it out of the pit wall on two tyres was just, I don't know, that will always sit in my memory. I just think it's heroic, it's epic, it's racecraft, it's again everything that Alonso represents and is as a race driver and as a man. I love it. And then at number one, Spain 13 now. I was going to put Spain 12 or Valencia 2012. The reason why I had to put 2013 in there is because there was a cheeky overtake that nobody's talked about thus far into turn 3, round the outside of one world champion Kimi Raikkonen, and then straight into, in the same turn, Lewis Hamilton. put some respect on that guy's name. Let's talk about consensus, lads, and that, by the way, will have to go in our top 5, our group consensus top 5 at some point. I promise you, bro. I'm going to argue to the death for that in 10 minutes or less. Go on then, chaps. I think the consensus ones, Baku 18, a couple of us had that in our list, 130R, 2012 season, Imola 05, which I'm not too happy about, chaps. I don't know about Imola 05. Go on then.
Can I just say, actually, really quickly? I know it's bad to kind of say number one straight away, but I feel like
12.
Because, three of us, I think 2012 should probably be the number one. I mean, we've all kind of talked it up, but just the entire season. So I think, putting 2012 as the number one Fernando Alonso moment, I think might be a start.
What are we saying to that, chaps? I'll just get straight in there.
I agree with it. Yeah, this is my number one, so I'm happy.
Yeah, it's true. What could I have above 2012? I'll defer. I can't argue with that, bro. Although I really want to. No, Imola 05. I'm happy with that. Needs to go in there at some point. We haven't even got a top 5 yet. 130R though, chaps. Here, let me argue the case against 130R. Was it that good, really? As an overtaking maneuver? Was it really that good? Brave, tick. Brilliant. You know, one of those ones that go down in history and kind of get like the zeitgeist overhypes it a sec. I watched that back about 5 times and I was like, listen, Schumacher's giving him that corner. For bravery, absolutely 10 out of 10. But as far as like the mechanics of the overtake, I think history has massively overhyped that. Massively.
It's the visual for me with that one is the way he just pops out the outside and then swings past him like a slingshot. The onboard, you can't really see that, but when you watch the in live race footage, it's just that slingshot effect around the outside. And it wasn't just any other driver, it was Michael Schumacher, the king of F1, and he's just absolutely nailed him, with a daring, bold overtake that I think was very symbolic of who Fernando was at that stage of his career.
And how many overtakes? How many overtakes have you seen around that corner as well?
True. True.
And they didn't have DRS back then as well.
True. Yeah. Also.
And Alda said it right. The commentary made that move right. That would have been an airplane crash if they'd come together. Right. That was the first time I'd heard that. So.
If it was Lewis and Max going into that corner, different discussion.
I'll just have to take it there. Here's what I will say, chaps. I don't want to call out the group for mistakes that haven't yet been made. However, as an overtake in and of itself, there's no way that 130R move is better than Spain 13. I'll just say it, chaps. If you guys want to commit suicide and place on that list 130R and not Spain 2013.
I think what it represents, though, and also that 2013 move. The thing about it is, it's almost the entire start as well. Don't forget, he also had a good start during that race. And Fernando Alonso, he is king of the starts. I have yet to see any other driver in F1 history who is a better starter than Fernando Alonso. Like, his resume of good starts is unbelievable. So, listen, it's got to be up there. And also his last win as well, which is actually quite sad.
Mate, see, I feel like you've just made my case for me. Aldous, does that need to be on the list, chaps? Quick yes or no, Baxty. In fact, let me give you the either or. Spain 13, overtake around the outside, or 130R overtake on 7-time champion.
In that scenario, I take 130R every time.
Shows similar. Bloody no, I've been outvoted.
130R, you've been outvoted, mate.
Mate, that's a mistake. That's a mistake. But we always make one on this on these top 5s. So we've got Imola 05, Baku 18, 130R, 2012 season. There's another one that needs to go on there. Spanish qualifying 07.
There was a couple of Nürburgring 07.
Yeah, didn't we both say Nürburgring 07?
I didn't say it, but I'm happy for it to go in.
What do we think in terms of the vote? What's a better drive, Nürburgring 07 or Baku 2018? What would you put as which one's above? Because I think that's step one, Aldas. Let's go through the 5 that we've got, and then we'll argue the toss. So Imola 05, Baku 18, 130R, that's 3, 07 European, and then 2012 season. Go on then to Aldas's question.
Shez, I'll pitch it to you very quickly, bruv. Which one are you picking, mate? Baku 18 or 07?
Oh, look, as a drive, it's got to be Baku 18. Like there's not really any question. He had a, when he overtook Felipe towards the end of the race at the European, he had a car advantage, and he used it. Fine. So as a race, yes, Baku 18. As a moment, yeah, I don't think many moments top that little cheeky finger wag in the pit lane, and
it was
then
classic Fernando as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The win wasn't enough. He needed to get like
exactly. And he actually directed the camera to look at the little mark on his car, and then no, and then the conversation with Felipe, which has just been edited to beyond belief now.
Go on then,
we're talking Fernando a moment that for me tops Baku.
All right, so where we put in 07 European, because it is techie, isn't it? Can that go as high as number 2 on the list after 2012 season?
No, I think no,
that's not that high.
In terms of, actually, I'm looking at, because I've been kind of like keeping the list a little bit as well. 2012 is number 1. I've got 130R as number 2, just in terms of the overtake, the moment, everything. Okay, then we got the 2013 Star and also the overtake around Hamilton and Raikkonen in 3rd. And then in terms of that 4th and 5th spot, like the last 2 spots, we've got Baku 2018, we've got Nürburgring and Imola 05. So if we got those three options, which 2 go in and which one misses out?
Oh, how is Imola 05 on the cusp of driver?
No, Imola 05 has to be in there, just again because of what that symbolised. There were 2 moments in 2005 that just symbolised this wasn't just any ordinary driver we were watching. You've got to have Imola 05. I would put that above certainly the 2013 overtake. I would possibly put it, well, I have got it above 130R as well, but that's my take.
You've got Imola above 130R?
Yeah, that was my 2.
I think that's a good shout, I genuinely, I would also argue Imola above 130R. I've told you about it. 130R wasn't that good, chaps. I don't care.
So we put in Imola 05 in second then, just behind 2012 as the second best Fernando Alonso moment. Does that sound fair?
I think so, Shez. Sorry, mate.
I don't think that's fair, but okay, cool. You do it.
Argue me 130R quickly, bro, before you're late for work.
Oh yeah, good time. Like I said, this is about moments and about everything that's built up around a particular moment. Number 1, that is in probably the best race I think I've almost ever seen. And that move defined that race and that season and that champion against at that point the most successful driver of all time. I mean, these are big things, and you're underplaying a move that in cars that weren't as stable, didn't have the downforce, didn't have DRS, on the dirty part of the track, around the outside of the fastest corner. That was a massive accident waiting to happen. And then you add in the commentary. Then you add in how fondly we remember
the look of the cars as well. The red Ferrari, the blue Renault, the sound,
and the number of times, and the number of times. Every time Japan comes around, every season they replay that. Every single season. And why? Because it's defining, not just for Fernando, but for that race, for that season. How can it not be above Imola 05? It blows my mind.
Baxty, talk to me, bro.
I can counter that by saying, yes, that was a defining moment of that season, but there was also another storyline in that 2005 race, being Kimi Räikkönen coming from 17th and getting Fizzy on the line. You remember that race for 2 reasons. Imola 05 is purely Fernando versus Michael, and that rivalry that set the tone for 12 months down the line.
Done.
Also, by the way, Fizzy bottled that win so bad.
Absolutely.
I know, obviously, Kimi, amazing drive by Kimi, but any other driver in front, any other driver, I don't. Anyway, yeah, Fizzy bottled it. That's what I'll say. But
poor Giancarlo.
That was Kimi Räikkönen predicting what people should be doing into turn 1 in Brazil before it actually happened. dummy them into the final corner.
Mate,
So that means, I think, if we've got those four, so 2012, Imola 05 in second, that was a big one. We've got 130R in third. Then we got the 2013, the start, the overtake, the last win in fourth place. That means we've got one more spot between, again, it's between Baku or Germany. So it's between one of those two then for the last spot on the top 5.
Arm wrestle time.
Baku every single day of the week, chaps. I'm sorry.
Nürburgring for me.
Gosh.
Ooh. What did you have? Wait, Shez, what did you have?
I mean, I'm gonna. This is a really tough one. I didn't have it on my list, but I think that was an oversight on my part, not having Baku on there. The optics of it. You know what? I'm gonna argue against myself. Baku 18.
Let's go. Nothing long.
20... Oh, do you know what? This is really awkward because I love both of them. Do you know what? I think Baku is the better drive, but I think I'm going to go Baku. But yeah, shout out to Germany. It's just the moment, the drive, the little finger to the camera, the argument with Felipe. It's pure Fernando at his absolute best. Not just the driver, but the character as well. That's why why he's so good for Formula One. He's a fantastic driver. He's one of the all-time greats, regardless of the stats that he doesn't have. He's never going to be with Hamilton, Vettel, or Verstappen in terms of numbers, but he's box office on and off the track. But I think it's Baku as a driver. It was just incredible, and I think it personifies Fernando Alonso getting every last ounce out of bad cars. So yeah, I think Baku 2018 is in the 5th.
Let's go. I feel like we have our set, and we put in 2013 overtaking 4th. Let's go. We'll have that.
Got to give you a win a little bit,
Let's go. The only one with it on their list, of course. Right then, chaps, I think we've got ourselves a list. Baku 2018 in 5th. In 4th place, the overtake round turn 3, I think. Hold on. I need to clarify this, lads. I don't want to read out the wrong fact.
I think just the entire lap of 2013 lap. Spain. Yeah, the start, the overtake, the win. It's overtake his last win.
Wow. The overtake around turn 3 on Kimi Räikkönen and Lewis Hamilton. In 3rd, we have 130R, which is very techie. I'm not sure about that, chaps. If we had more time, I would argue against, but we don't. In 2nd, Imola 05, and in 1st, the entirety of the 2012 season. Take that, chaps. We've nailed it, bruv. Jeez. Aldas, we're going to have to get you back on, man, to do another top 5 because it's these are always very, very bloody techie, and we rarely come to consensus in 45 minutes or less, but we've nailed it. That, ladies and gents, has been another episode of the Shakedown. For co-host Baxty B, for co-host Shez, and for guest co-host, the legend, the market-leading YouTube content creator, that is Aldas. I've been your boy Cameron, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode. Between now and then, remember as always to look but never stare. Peace.